Disney has had a variety of movies from our favorite stories, but not all movies made it to our screens for various reasons. Here's a look at some of the movies we wish made it to the screens as compiled by Riveted. Number 1. Uncle Stiltskin. Way before the hit TV series Once Upon a Time introduced fans to Robert Carlyle's character Rumpelstiltskin, Disney had planned to do a film called Uncle Stiltskin. Fans of Once Upon a Time wished that this movie was not canceled by Disney. Bill and Cherry Steinkellner sold Uncle Stiltskin to Disney in 2003. The movie would have featured the main character ready to kidnap another child as he longs to be a father. Uncle Stiltskin tries to get a kid by spinning straw into gold, but it doesn't work the way he expected. He ends up getting this feral orphan girl who spent her life being raised by wolves. As usual, he would eventually find the true meaning of life and love, like in all other Disney movies. It was being worked on around the same time as Tangled and The Princess and the Frog, so there's a good chance this got lost in the developmental stages. Number 2. The Rainbow Road to Oz. Yeah, this one sounds very familiar to the popular show Wizard of Oz, the 1939 film which introduced moviegoers to a magical land of witches, tin men, scarecrows, and talking lions. The film was very successful back in the day, and Disney wanted to make a similar movie. The Rainbow Road to Oz didn't happen, and no one is really sure why, especially since Disney heavily promoted it on TV. Number 3. My Peoples. My Peoples would be set in the 1940s Texas and would have followed the story of two feuding families, whose two children, Rose and Elgin, end up falling in love. In 2003, Disney made plans to make an animated feature about a ghost of three kids who want to bring their pair of lovers who come from two opposing families in the 1940s Appalachia. Not only did the film have an awesome premise, but its cast list was Hollywood royalty and featured Dolly Parton, Charles Dunning, Hal Holbrook, and Lily Tomlin. This was a very personal project for director Barry Cook, inspired by his own family, and early test screenings got positive responses. When David Stainton was brought in to replace the former head of animation, he was unimpressed with how the film was shaping up and ultimately decided to halt the production. Chanticleer. Number 4. Disney wanted to make this movie for over 20 years, and a couple of decades down the line, it still hasn't happened. It was to be based on the French play Chanticleer by Edmond Rostand, and the story of the movie would follow a vain rooster who thought the sun only rose in the morning because he called it. The rooster in question had quite an attitude. He actually made the other barnyard animals believe that it was he who brought the sun up every morning. The movie also had a peasant who wanted the rooster to notice her, and a Spanish fighting cock named Senor Poco Loco who spent a lot of time with the rooster. The villain of the story, a fox named Reynard, went on to become its own movie idea, but sadly that idea was also dead on arrival. The studio tried to revive Chanticleer in the 1960s, but it got shelved again after the company decided to devote part of its time and money to theme parks. Disney had even completed the songs of the movie, but they chose to release The Sword and the Stone instead of Chanticleer. The movie was pitched again in 1981 and got instantly rejected. Don Bluth ended up animating his own loose adaptation of the play in 1991 called Rock-a-Doodle. Number 5. Fraidy Cat. The movie would follow a cat afraid of everything in a comedy thriller that paid homage to Alfred Hitchcock movies. The description read, "A chubby house cat with frayed nerves is torn off his comfy couch and dropped smack dab in the middle of a Hitchcockian thriller when he is accused of a crime he didn't commit." This was something that viewers were actually very eager to see. The early concepts also looked pretty good, but Disney decided not to do the project. According to the company, they didn't think the movie would be a big hit. The decision to cancel the movie actually led to a loss on Disney. Longtime Disney animators Ron Clements and John Musker left the company over the loss of Fraidy Cat. They eventually came back, but the fact that they left shows that the world might have been heavily robbed. Come on, Disney, it's not too late to revisit this one. Newt, number 6. In 2008, Disney announced new projects with Pixar, which included Newt and the Bear and the Bow. The Bear and the Bow eventually found its way to the big screen in 2012, retitled as Brave, but Newt got shelved. The movie was set to be the feature directing debut of Gary Ridstrom. Unfortunately, he was fired and the film got canceled. The film would follow the last two blue-footed newts on the planet, a male and a female, who get forced together by scientists to save their species. The movie also offered a good conflict. The two newts couldn't stand each other. The film got canceled in 2010, but it still had a reference in Toy Story 3 where there is a newt crossing sign in Andy's room. There's also a reference in Brave when a newt goes into the potion brewed up by the witch. The initial reasoning given for the cancellation was that the concept of two members of an endangered species having to mate was too similar to Rio, but obviously there was more to the story. Number 7. Gigantic. The company announced this movie at the 2015 D23 convention, but it never saw the light of day. Disney tapped Frozen songwriters Robert Lopez and Kirsten Anderson Lopez for the movie songs, and even had them perform one on stage at the announcement event. Tangled director Nathan Greeno was on board to lead the film's development, later joined by screenwriter Meg LaFave. The movie would act as the retelling of Jack and the Beanstalk with comedy and deep emotion and a setting in Spain during the Age of Exploration. It would have featured Jack meeting and befriending Inma, a fiery and feisty 11-year-old giant girl. Gigantic was set to be released on March 9, 2018. Then it got delayed to November 21st, 2018, and then again to November 25th, 2020, before ultimately being canceled altogether in October 2017 due to story issues. Disney said that they were focusing on a project which would be released on Thanksgiving of 2020. Gigantic, however, managed to get a reference in Zootopia's DVD version, parodied as Giraffic before it got canceled. 8. Tron Ascension. In 2013, director Joseph Kosinski was not only attached to the project but also spoke about it in an interview, saying that the movie was in its early stages and that it would build off what happened in the last 5 minutes of Legacy. While there were plans to make this third installment before the second was even released, Tron Ascension spent years in development hell. Later, Disney scrapped the idea, with sources admitting that the film never received the green light in the first place. It looks like this movie hasn't been completely shelved. There have reportedly been talks of a reboot, which would find Jared Leto starring in the film. Number 9. The Gremlins. This movie was supposed to be based on the book written by Roald Dahl. It was actually a proposed collaboration between Walt Disney and Roald Dahl back when he was a fighter pilot in World War II and before he became a famous writer. This version isn't the cult 80s movie that we're familiar with. It got canceled due to a mix of both copyright problems and strict oversight by the British Air Ministry. The only survivor of this was the novel that was supposed to go with the theatrical release. 50,000 books were published in the US by Random House, and 30,000 of them were sold in Australia. Due to a paper shortage, the publication eventually stopped. The Gremlin characters have since been used by Disney in a couple of Dark Horse comic series and the 2 epic Mickey video games. Number 10. Hiawatha. Yeah, this one also has everything to do with the Little Hiawatha. It has a Henry Wadsworth Longfellow poem that was very famous. In 1937, Little Hiawatha was one of the stars of a Silly Symphonies cartoon produced by Walt Disney. For those who don't know who Hiawatha is, he was a Native American chief who helped unite the Native American tribes in New York. His work inspired America's founding fathers and the Constitution as we know it. He was a follower of the Great Peacemaker, a prophet, and spiritual leader. The movie's proposed feature was supposed to take in a similar direction as Fantasia, artistic but not contradictory, and it would feature a single storyline. Disney scrapped the movie to focus on other projects like Peter Pan. It said that some of the artwork went on to inspire Disney's Pocahontas, which was one of the studio's biggest and most critically acclaimed movies of the 90s. Here are some other Disney movies that were also canceled. Planes Spinoff. In July 2017 at the D23 Expo, former Chief Creative Officer John Lasseter announced that a spin-off film of the Planes series would explore the future of aviation in outer space and that it was being developed by Disney Toon Studios. The film had a release date of April 12, 2019. However, it was removed from the list and Disney Toon was also shut down. Yellow Submarine. Disney canceled the motion capture remake project due to the box office failure of the Zemeckis-produced motion capture film Mars Needs Moms and aesthetic concerns about the technology. Phineas and Ferb theatrical film. There's already a show for this, but the theatrical film idea had a very interesting concept. It was going to be a combination of animation and live action. It would have been like Roger Rabbit, in which the characters would have been put into the real world. King of the Elves. This story followed a group of elves and a dwarf living in the Mississippi Delta who decided to make a human their leader after he saved them from a troll. Finding Nemo 2. This was a project by Circle 7 Animation. It would have involved Nemo's long-lost twin brother named Remy, then Marlin gets captured, and it's up to Nemo, Remy, and Dory to save him. After Disney bought Pixar in 2006, Circle 7 was shut down, and its version of Finding Nemo 2 was scrapped. Pixar made their own movie, Finding Dory, many years later. There are a ton of other Disney movies which never saw the light of day, but we'll leave it at that for now. Which canceled movie would you have loved to see? Sound off in the comments section below. And before you leave, subscribe and check back tomorrow for another amazing compilation by Riveted.